Elimination Chamber. We're going to talk about predictions, then we'll get to SmackDown afterwards. If I feel like doing SmackDown, it'll get done after this. But first, we got to talk about Elimination Chamber. From the Rogers Center in Toronto, Ontario, March the 1st, 6:30 p.m. It'll start on Peacock at 7 o'clock. It apparently has 31,000 people will be in the building, a massive audience. This is the first WWE pay-per-view at Toronto since WrestleMania 18, if I remember correctly. I think that was on the Wikipedia. I don't know how true that is. 4 matches announced, 1 segment announced, and a live performance announced. Because there's something about Travis Scott being here. Why is Travis Scott? Why Travis Scott? What's happening here? Why is Travis Scott featured on this? Why is he on the posters and everything? Why is this happening? I would imagine this has something to do with Jey Uso. I would imagine, but I don't care about this. I really don't. Get him out of here. I've never listened to a whole Travis Scott song, let alone album. And he's not my cup of tea. He's not anybody's cup of tea. He just kind of exists. But I know he's very popular, so that's why they're promoting him. But that sucks. I'm very frustrated by this Travis Scott thing because this sounds like a waste of time. And the last thing Elimination Chamber needs is waste of time. You know, we got enough commercials. This show is going to be 3 hours with 4 matches. It's going to be a whole boatload of dead air. The last thing I want is to deal with some no-name rapper. Even though I know he's like a multi-millionaire or whatever. Anyway, let's move on. There's a lot of, I guess you could say, spoilers floating around that I don't see how you could spoil the show that hasn't happened yet. Spoilers are for taped programs that are, have yet to air. Like that's what a spoiler is. Anything else is kind of just a prediction, all right? So I'm not going to talk about the spoiler just yet. I want to talk about the rest of the card first. But I'm not that excited for Elimination Chamber if we're being honest. If we're being completely honest, I kind of don't care. But we're going to talk about the show anyway because I am committed to doing these. And some people actually like when I do predictions and things like this. So again, 4 matches on the show. Match number 1, Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus versus Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. I don't see, this doesn't even factor into the WrestleMania match, right? Because what is there to learn or to gain from this match? It's Trish Stratus gets to have one final match in Toronto. I think she teased that this might be the last time she gets to perform in front of Toronto because apparently she's on the verge of renewing her retirement as well. And look, it's a great rub for Tiffany Stratton, but it doesn't factor into WrestleMania at all. It's just kind of a special attraction match, and she's still stuck with Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. She's not... It's not going to get her more over than she was before. Now, maybe they can do something in the post-match, because I would imagine Trish and Tiffy are going to win, because Candice LeRae is in this match. She's obviously going to take the loss, right? Or maybe Nia Jax will take the pin. Who knows? It's all up in the air at this point. But I don't expect too much out of this match, except for it to fill time. And that's what it feels like. There's no women's championship match on this show. There's no world title match on this show. It's just a bunch of time filler stuff. That being said, I don't look forward to this. They need to do something afterwards, though, in order to make this interesting. How do you make this interesting? What can Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte do to make this match, or their match, more marketable and more palatable for the audience? I'm not sure, because Triple H does not like to do post-match stuff, really. He likes to basically use the pay-per-views to get over what he wants to get over, and then he moves on to something else. So I don't think there's going to be any story element into this. Maybe there'll be a story thing between Nia and Candice where they'll get into it. But other than that, I just think this match is going to be straight. Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus win, and then we move on from there. Okie dokie, artichokey. No more, no less. Match number 2. Unsanctioned match. Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens. Despite the fact that this match is unsanctioned, it also feels like filler because it's clear neither one of these guys are going to be wrestling each other at WrestleMania, and it's also clear that this match was just booked because it's in Canada, and Triple H likes to book hometown favorites on the show like he did with the Clash at the Castle, and he ended up randomly booking Alba Fire and Isla Dawn because they're going to be in Scotland or whatever. So this feels like more of the same. Like, we got a Canadian show. Let's just book some Canadians, Trish Stratus and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And, you know, what does it mean for the overall picture of WrestleMania? Nothing much. Just we want to have some Canadians on the Canadian show. And that's sensible, but I want storylines. I want things to exist for a reason. And I'm not sure why Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus are friends. I don't know why that's happening. And I get why Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are fighting. But now we should be barreling towards WrestleMania. And having a match like this, at a time like this, when we really should be fleshing out what these guys are doing at WrestleMania, seems a bit disjointed for me. Sami Zayn especially. Kevin Owens at least has the Randy Orton thing dangling over his head, so he could always go with Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton. But Sami Zayn, man, that guy's got nothing going. I mean, all of his feuds are essentially wrapped up, and he's basically like a tertiary part of a bunch of other feuds. So, unfortunate for him, but that's just kind of how it is. I think Kevin Owens wins the match, and they probably do a thing where he power drives Sami Zayn, which sits Sami Zayn at home for a while. Maybe he misses WrestleMania because he took that pile driver, and they use that as part of a story in the future. Or they do something silly like Sami Zayn wins because of the RKO that Randy Orton gives to Kevin Owens. I mean, that would be hot. I think that would be a great finish. But Triple H doesn't necessarily book things that way. He likes these matches to be pretty straightforward. So, and then even if Sami Zayn wins, we still don't know what the hell he's doing at WrestleMania. So, I mean, that's just the case at this point in time. So, it's another filler match. I don't really care who wins. I really don't care who loses. But it's a thing that is occurring on the show. So maybe we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But my excitement level for this is 1 out of 5. Next, the Women's Elimination Chamber match. Liv Morgan versus Bianca Belair versus Alexa Bliss versus Bayley versus Naomi versus Roxanne Perez. The winner will wrestle for the Women's World Championship at WrestleMania 41. And that means they will be wrestling Rhea Ripley. Now, this is interesting, very interesting, because you do potentially have the Jade Cargill reveal. You do potentially have some storyline stuff tied up in here. So there can be some level of intrigue, but this match is very weak because I don't really want to see Rhea wrestle anybody in here except Bianca. Do we really need to see Rhea Ripley versus Bayley? I don't. Do we really need to see Rhea Ripley versus Roxanne Perez? Well, that could be fine, but Roxanne Perez comes up to Rhea Ripley's rib cage. So it's not a good visual for WrestleMania. Liv Morgan, and of course Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley have been fighting for over a year straight. Alexa Bliss, you can just forget it. I mean, it's just not going to happen. And Naomi, well, I think Naomi and Bianca have the same issue, in so much as the Jade Cargill thing still dangles over their heads. But again, you have a situation where it would make sense for, let's say, somebody to get pinned, and then for Jade Cargill to jump in the ring and attack one of these two and cost her the match. as she's the real attacker and all that sort of stuff. But are they going to do that? And I don't know if they will. It seems like they probably should, but I don't think so. Ultimately, I want to see Bianca versus Rhea Ripley, even though I don't think Bianca will win that match because Triple H loves Rhea Ripley. I mean, my God. But I think Rhea versus Bianca is the most WrestleMania of matches that's possible, given the scenario that we're involved with. And it's going to be very much a Warrior versus Hogan Ultimate Challenge kind of thing, because unless they're going to turn Bianca, there's not going to be a heel in that match. It's just going to be a who's better than who kind of storyline, which is fine, but it's fight promotion. It's not storytelling. I talked about this before, I think maybe on the live stream, that Triple H and Tony Khan are fight promoters. They try to get the two biggest matches possible, but they don't try to sell the ballyhoo. The big story, the overall narrative. And that's what's missing in modern day WWE is the overall narrative. Bianca Belair has been stuck in a tag team for a year and a half. There's just not been any motion in her as a singles act to now, rocket her to wrestling Rhea Ripley out of nowhere. It works for a big match. We just need to have the big match happen. But it doesn't lead anybody to believe that Bianca is going to win that match. It just feels like, well, Bianca's a WrestleMania level opponent for Rhea Ripley, so let's just do that. And then afterwards, who cares? We'll figure it out afterwards. But for me, I think that's the best option. But I would have had Bianca, rolling towards this for a while, rather than her stuck in a tag team until the very last second. And then we took the belts from her just so she can do this thing single. Do we have Jade Cargill show up here? I don't think so. She should. And it would make sense if she was to attack, probably Naomi, either during her entrance or something like that, in order to really get their feud going. Or if they're going to turn Bianca for Jade to attack her and get that thing going. When Jade was initially signed, a lot of people wanted the Jade versus Bianca match. A lot of people wanted that. Especially that first year, Bianca was the one who kind of wanted the tag team idea. Then, I think Jonathan Coachman was floating the idea that Bianca was frustrated with this tag team thing and wanted out of it. But this was months ago. Of course, she's just now losing the title, but this was months ago. But it was before Jade Cargill got written off TV. So quite possibly there's some story there that you could have Bianca be the one who took out Jade, even though it doesn't make sense because Bianca was in the ring at the time. But whatever. If you're going to do Jade versus Bianca, fine. But that means who wins this match, because Bianca can't win it if she's going to be wrestling Jade at WrestleMania. Who's your second best option? Well, is your second best option Alexa Bliss, who is this, second biggest star in the match? Do you really want to see Alexa Bliss wrestle Rhea Ripley? Can Alexa Bliss have believable offense against Rhea Ripley? I don't think so. I think for people who are into the goth mommies, that might work. If you use the Wyatt Six to play mind games, that might work. But they're all on SmackDown, by the way, so I don't know. There are things you can do, I suppose, to make Alexa Bliss a threat. But still, physically, they got to have the match. And I'm not sure that Alexa Bliss is a physical threat to Rhea Ripley. The only other person that's a physical threat to Rhea Ripley in this match is Bayley. And if Bayley wins this match, I will travel to Connecticut and set Triple H's gardens on fire. I will burn every fucking rose, orchid, tulip, or whatever on the outside of his house if Bayley wins this match. Because I would just think at some point he has his own telephone full of flirty text messages for Auntie Pam. There's just no reason for Bayley to win this match. So the only realistic options in my mind is Bianca and Alexa Bliss. And It depends on what direction they decide to go with the Jade Cargill thing, and whether you can create a storyline or even something within the body of a match where Alexa Bliss can be a physical threat to Rhea Ripley. So my belief, Bianca Belair is going to win this match, and it's going to be Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. Match number 4, the main event. John Cena versus CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre versus Logan Paul versus Damian Priest versus Seth freaking Rollins for the number 1 contendership undisputed championship match. Okie dokie. Now, Dr. Chris Featherstone, who works at Sportskeeda, I believe, is put out a spoiler, quote unquote, that states that Drew McIntyre is going to win this match, which means that the main event of WrestleMania is going to be Drew McIntyre versus Cody Rhodes. Now, do I hate that? No, I don't hate that. I actually don't think it's that bad. I'm just not sure that's the direction I would go with a WrestleMania main event. It's a perfectly fine SummerSlam main event. It's a perfectly fine main event for a crown jewel. It's a perfectly fine main event for Money in the Bank. But I'm not so sure it's a great WrestleMania main event. I just think Drew has been devalued. He just got pinned by Jey Uso, for God's sake. Not Jey, but Jimmy. He just got pinned by Jimmy Uso, for God's sake. Drew has been devalued so much, even though he has also had the best year of his career last year. At the same time, I just don't think anybody sees him as a WrestleMania main event guy right now. You know, he's been a guy who's gotten so close but fallen short, and that's been his presentation for the last 2 or 3 years. He gets really close, he's really formidable, but he's not going to win. And I think in a match where Drew McIntyre wrestles Super Cody, I don't think that it's believable that Cody Rhodes is going to lose to Drew McIntyre in the main event of WrestleMania. Now, that will also tease Drew McIntyre being The Rock's Man Friday and the guy who is willing to be the corporate champion. You know, a lot of people think it's going to be CM Punk. I don't know why that would be. Look, let's talk about the CM Punk option for starters. CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes is a big WrestleMania main event. The fact that Cody Rhodes has been embroiled in the bloodline feud since forever has really kind of taken away from Cody as a champion. He's really been a shitty champion. Let's just be honest. The booking for this title has been almost non-existent. It's been no good. It's been weeks and weeks of Cody comes out just to do the whoa, and he fights with Solo Sikoa. You know? So at this point, somebody like Cena, somebody like Punk, you can do a huge superstar versus superstar main event at WrestleMania with very little storyline going into it. Punk and Cena are both those kinds of options. If you want to do a match where you don't have to heavily come up with a really big overall story, but it's something that people might be interested in, something people want to see, Roman Reigns versus Undertaker, Steve Austin versus Kevin Owens. You don't need like a really deep story for something like that. It's just something people want to see. Then CM Punk and John Cena are great options to have wrestle Cody Rhodes. Because his storyline is mostly with the bloodline stuff. Now, Cena not winning will basically take the air out of the building again. People are, look, I know that some people thought it was really nice of him to lose to Jey Uso in the Royal Rumble and help Jey get over. But Cena has to be selfish at some point. You have to take into account this is his last year. If he continues to lose, then people will not care. You have to give people some level of motivation that John Cena is still John Cena. We saw John Cena lose enough the last 4 or 5 years. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but we've seen him lose enough. He's lost match after match after match in a row. Enough of that shit. Like, if he's not going to win this match, I don't even see why he's in it. And plus, if he doesn't beat Cody, then who does he wrestle at WrestleMania? Well, he could also wrestle CM Punk at WrestleMania. Well, sure. They should be the main event then. So that means Cody versus whoever wins this match ain't the main event. Then Punk and Cena is the main event. Unless it's going to, of course, be separate nights. Damian Priest, you can forget it. I just don't believe Damian Priest is going to win. I would be surprised. And if you're going to go with pure shock, then Damian Priest would be the one that you would put over in pure shock mode. But I wouldn't do that. I just don't think that's useful. Seth Rollins, we've seen enough Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes matches to last a lifetime. And Logan Paul is not a WrestleMania main event opponent, and I think Cody has already beaten him. So, no, I don't think that's going to happen. So you really do only have three options: McIntyre, Punk, and Cena. McIntyre is a great opponent. If it was June or July, I would not have a problem with McIntyre, but it's not. It's March. So I have an issue with Drew McIntyre wrestling Cody Rhodes at the main event of WrestleMania. Even with the year Drew McIntyre has had, that momentum has been broken. You know, that momentum has been, he went off TV for who knows how many weeks. Then he got eliminated out of the Royal Rumble like a jabroni. He got pinned by Jimmy Uso. You know, but his storyline could meet The Rock's storyline, and they could do that well. And it could also be a great angle, considering it would be Drew McIntyre teaming up with a member of the Bloodline, which is something that if you're going to have a really good villain, him being a hypocrite is a really great way to go on about it. I've said that before. One of the best ways to write villains is for them to be complete and total hypocrites, for them to abandon everything that they've preached before. He has a really good point. All that bullshit goes out of the window. If you want to do that with Drew McIntyre, that could work. You know, if you want to have Drew McIntyre be this guy who was super upset about Roman Reigns and everybody teaming up with the Bloodline, and then he teams up with the Bloodline because it's, you know, in his best interest now, that could be really good. It could be good. I would want him to change his look. Basically, you know, maybe cut his hair or something, but I don't know how he would look that way. Maybe not use so much of that black shit in his head. Maybe go back to his regular, I think his hair is naturally brown. Maybe go back to something like that. I want him to look differently. You know, wear a suit and stuff. If you're going to be the corporate champion, go corporate. Go full on with it. You know? So if Drew's going to be the guy that's going to team up with The Rock, that's fine, I guess. You know? It's not the best option, but it's not the worst. Obviously, the A+ option is Cena. For Cena to sell out to The Rock. But why would Cena do that? You know? This last year, to try to have his very last year be a heel year, is goofy. Like, this is where you get people who just have no level of creativity, and their idea is you can do anything. It's like, not really. There still needs to have some level of believability and narrative structure. Cena's never really been the corporate champion on purpose. So for him to basically sell out to The Rock to do that, and there better be a damn good reason why he would do something like that. And Punk, well, you do have the Punk option where Punk says, you know, he's not here to make friends, he's here to make money. And this is his last chance to main event at WrestleMania, maybe. And that could be a good way of going with it. Maybe the favor between Punk and Paul Heyman was to get Punk on the phone with The Rock. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe he wanted a phone call with The Rock. And him and The Rock talked about this, and they came to an agreement that if Punk won the Elimination Chamber, he would be the corporate champion. He would represent the WWE on The Rock's behalf. Blah, 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 blah. Of course, it flies in the face of everything CM Punk has stood for, which is why it could work. The exact same reason why it could work for Drew McIntyre. because CM Punk has been anti-WWE for most of his career. People already call him a sellout because he went back. So you could also say, just play into that. You could just say, well, people called you a sellout because you went back anyway. Let's now just literally have CM Punk sell out. But CM Punk being a lackey to The Rock, selling his soul to The Rock, I don't know. That seems to me to be the equivalent of Stone Cold Steve Austin shaking Vince McMahon's hand, where it's going to have a certain level of intrigue, at least initially, and then people are going to regurgitate this. They're going to throw it up. They get the sour belches over this sort of thing. And I don't think that in 10 years, people should be like, oh man, it was a really bad idea to have CM Punk team up with The Rock. Like, it sounds good on paper, but, when you actually get into the story, people don't want The Rock to be the corporate champion. They want CM Punk to be the anti-WWE guy. And it would make perfect sense if, Punk is offered the spot and he pretends that he's going to take it. Like, maybe he shakes The Rock's hand and then he picks The Rock up and hits him with the GTS. And, that begins something between the two of them. That could be fun. But at this point, we're still talking about something other than Cody being the champion. It's been said that The Rock is throwing his weight around. He's keeping a lot of the creative real close to the vest. Well, what he wants to do, real close to the vest. I think it would probably be best for The Rock to pick somebody in the bloodline to be his hand-picked champion. Maybe have Solo Sikoa try to be that guy, only for Solo to, be rejected. Maybe have Jacob try it. And then ultimately Roman Reigns, is offered the job and he turns it down too. There's a lot of different options because you have many, many weeks between now and WrestleMania that you could play with. But the winning of the match, I definitely think that either CM Punk or John Cena should win. I'm going to go with CM Punk winning. And I don't think it'll factor into the Rock storyline. I think the Rock storyline will likely be revealed after WrestleMania. Because once Cody is not involved with the bloodline anymore, they're going to want to focus his angle on who his opponent is going to be. And if his opponent is going to be either Cena or Punk, probably Punk, because Punk is going to be on TV every week, and so will Cody, they can actually build a match. Then you could just have The Rock maybe do, what's the word I'm looking for? I was about to say casting couch, but no diddy. Auditions, where various guys come out and say that they're willing to be The Rock's champion or whatever. But there's a lot of different things, a lot of different directions you can go with this. I will have CM Punk win the match. CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes is the main event of WrestleMania. John Cena maybe wrestles Drew McIntyre or somebody else on the card. Or you could flip that and you could have Cena win the match and then Punk ends up strapped to Logan Paul for I don't know why, but it seems to me that despite the fact that some people are claiming that The Rock did not disrupt Triple H's story, it's pretty obvious that Triple H's story was disrupted. Again, look at the Intercontinental Championship thing where they've had Braun Breaker get in the face of several different people over the last couple of weeks for no reason. And these things have led nowhere. Oh, it's going to lead to a multiple man match. I don't think that was the plan initially. I think it's probably the plan now because they're so retarded that they were like, I don't know what to do with this kid. But if you actually just treat certain people like they're big stars, like AJ Styles, if you treat AJ Styles like he's a big star, you could have another big match on the show. He doesn't need to be, squished into this Intercontinental Championship schmaz, right? He could wrestle Logan Paul. I know that they did a thing on Raw. They've teased some stuff. Maybe they can do that. But The Rock's thing has thrown everything into turmoil because now everybody's like, who's going to be The Rock's guy? Who's going to be The Rock's guy? And most of the options are just not that good, you know? So, of course, that's the most interesting bit here is who's The Rock going to pick or who's going to volunteer to be The Rock's guy. And it needs to be somebody who can hold their own without The Rock being there because he's not going to be there. It needs to be somebody who's a believable champion. Cena can't be that because Cena's not going to be there. Punk can be that. He can be there. You can always put Heyman with Punk, and you always got that. You got Roman. Roman could be, one of the options, but I'm pretty sure they're going to go with Roman and either Jacob or maybe Solo and Jacob. But then who the hell is Roman going to wrestle? There's so many different things that should be clearer this close to WrestleMania, and there's no clear role for any of the top guys other than Cody Rhodes about who he's going to wrestle at WrestleMania. And that should have been cleared up because he should be wrestling the Royal Rumble winner. And the Elimination Chamber should be dealing with the second tier title. But Triple H just had to have Jey Uso win. And then he just had to have Jey Uso announce 2 weeks in who his opponent is going to be. And now we're stuck with this shit. The building is already sold when it comes to WrestleMania. So I'm not expecting them to sell any more tickets due to The Rock's involvement. But it should be at least interesting. And right now it's more confusing than interesting. Now when it comes to SmackDown proper, it was an absolutely waste of a show. They announced Nakamura versus LA Knight for the US title to take place on this show. Then they scrapped that and turned it into a United States Championship tournament that LA Knight won anyway. So it's still Nakamura versus LA Knight. This is the kind of ridiculous stuff. And people are like, this is so stupid. It was a complete waste of 3 hours. A complete waste of 3 hours. The only thing, I guess, remotely worth discussing is how The Rock is pitching woo to Cody, with the room full of wine and sushi, the Raptor truck, the belt with Cody's soul on it, all this kind of stuff. Like, all that was entertaining. Anything that involves The Rock, they're making sure to make that fun. And I really wouldn't have thought to pitch to do this, but, I actually liked it. Especially when he walked into his dressing room and it was like walls and walls of wine. Like every kind of wine you could possibly think of. All the other wrestlers giving him advice, from The Miz telling him to sell his soul, to CM Punk telling him to shove the offer up Rock's ass. I thought that was all entertaining. They really doing a good job with that story, because now that's apparently the A story. I will say this too, just on the subject of SmackDown. Logan Paul is not good with these dueling promos. He is not doing well at all. He did not do well in that Elimination Chamber promo segment. It wasn't his strongest outing. It's also not working out verbally that much for Tiffany Stratton either. I mean, they just need more. They're just very green in the role of doing the dueling promo. But Tiffany Stratton was smart enough at least a year or two ago to say that she needed more time to get over, when it comes to talking. And she felt that was a weakness of hers. And she's a little bit better, but she's still not up to par verbally. And she still got room to grow. And Logan Paul does too. Logan Paul sounds scripted, but he also sounds like he's lost out there. I mean, it's just easy to steamroll that guy on the microphone, man. He's really not that good. And he probably would be better if it was, I guess, more loose. Like if he could curse and, had some kind of freedom, he might be better. But in the confines of the character they've created for him, he wasn't very good at all. I'll say this also. Nothing on this show changed any of my predictions. All the predictions I had when I walked into the show are all the predictions I have now. The one major change is I can see Cena versus Drew McIntyre, due to the way Drew McIntyre addressed John Cena in the promo segment, talking about his bald spot, calling him a hypocrite. I could see them building to that match, and maybe Cena versus McIntyre, which I don't think has ever happened. I don't think it certainly hasn't happened on a main event level, but I don't think it's ever happened, period. Did they even wrestle at all when McIntyre was in the company the first time? It could be a first time ever. I think Drew was a strong opponent for Cena if they was going to go one-on-one. I certainly do not like the idea of Logan Paul versus John Cena. Yes, it's an easy win for Cena to keep him in the conversation. But this is this guy's last WrestleMania match. This would be the equivalent of giving Kurt Angle Baron Corbin if he ends up having to wrestle Logan Paul. It's an easy win. It's not too strenuous for him. Logan Paul could take all the bumps. He could do a bunch of character stuff. But I'm not a fan of Cena versus Logan Paul as an idea. But I do believe now that CM Punk versus Cody is the move, and it's likely the right move. CM Punk is motivated. He's focused. He came out there. He cut a hell of a promo on all the guys in the ring, especially on Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre. He even cut a pretty good promo on John Cena. I think that's the right move. I don't think you have any other useful moves. So after this promo segment, I'm still leaning more towards CM Punk winning Elimination Chamber. And that's that. When on the women's side, they had Alexa Bliss stand tall after the end of the 6-woman tag. They gave Roxanne Perez a pin over Bayley, but they're just trying to establish her. I don't see that as she has a chance of winning at Elimination Chamber at all. I don't think Alexa Bliss has a chance of winning either. So then there's that. Overall, SmackDown was incredibly boring. Look, Andrade is tremendous. Jacob Fatu is phenomenal. And so is Carmelo Hayes. But we've been dealing with LA Knight as the middle card guy for 2 years now. And the only other person that has been United States champion within the last 2 years has been Shinsuke Nakamura. And I think maybe Logan Paul, depending on when you start that 2-year stretch. So there have been 3 guys have been in the title picture in 2 years. That's insane. When you have Carmelo and Andrade, why was Braun Strowman even in this? Escobar, who is a perennial contender but always loses. It's just unfortunate that Triple H doesn't care about this mid-card thing, and it's an absolute waste. It was a waste of everybody's time to do this tournament just for LA Knight to win what they had already announced. So we're just going to leave it at the predictions, and I guess I'll talk to you guys after Elimination Chamber. Peace out.